Take a deep breath and think about this for a second. If $80 million suddenly dropped into your bank account tomorrow, what is the very first thing you would buy? A sprawling mega mansion? The sleekest, fastest sports car on the market? Or maybe a lifestyle of pure luxury that most people only ever see in their dreams? Now, let's look at a much darker reality. There was a man who had all of that. He was a high-flying Wall Street executive who made so much money, so fast that he used to routinely throw bundles of $100 bills at bartenders just for the hell of it. He owned multiple estates, drove exotic cars, and possessed a financial intellect that the world labeled as pure genius. But in a span of just a few years, a single bad bet, a towering ego, and a series of reckless decisions brought him to absolute ruin. He went completely, utterly bankrupt. At that exact same time, there was another man. He lived in a quiet, rural village. He spent his entire life working a modest job, pumping gas at a service station during the day, and sweeping floors as a janitor at night. He never made a six-figure salary, and he never owned anything flashy. But when he passed away, his face made front-page news across the country. Why? Because this completely ordinary janitor left behind a staggering $8 million fortune to his local library and hospital. A highly educated financial genius ended up penniless on the street, while a janitor who swept floors became a multimillionaire. How does that even happen? Did the janitor win the lottery? Was the Wall Street executive robbed? Not even close. The answer is far more shocking. And this is the exact turning point where you realize that almost everything you've been taught about money, by schools, by universities, and even by your parents, is a fundamental lie. The invisible architecture of wealth. We are conditioned to believe that to get rich, you have to be incredibly smart. We assume you need an Ivy League degree, a deep understanding of complex stock market charts, and an elite grasp of mathematics. We treat finance like physics, a strict discipline, where if you apply the right formula, you get the exact right result. But in the real world, people don't make financial decisions on a spreadsheet. They make them at the dinner table, late at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how they're going to survive the next corporate layoff. Money decisions are made in high-stress rooms where fear, greed, pride, and the desperate need to look successful in front of your neighbors smash into each other. The cold, hard truth is that doing well with money has almost nothing to do with how smart you are, and everything to do with how you behave. A certified genius who loses control of their emotions can easily be a financial disaster. Conversely, an ordinary person with zero formal financial education can build immense wealth if they master a few basic behavioral guardrails. Building wealth isn't a science, it is a psychological game. And if you don't understand the hidden rules of this mental game, it won't matter if you make 6 figures or 7. Your pockets will always be empty. No one is crazy. When you look at someone buying lottery tickets with the last few dollars of their paycheck, or an investor piling their life savings into a highly speculative tech bubble, what is the first thought that crosses your mind? You probably think, wow, that person is completely crazy. But wait a minute. The reality is, no one is crazy. Every single person views the world through a completely unique lens, and the tint of that lens is determined by the specific generation you were born into, the income of your parents, and the economic climate of your formative years. If you entered the workforce during the devastating 2008 financial crash, your view of risk and the stock market is fundamentally different from someone who lived through the booming, roaring 90s. Your personal experience with money makes up perhaps 1/1000th of what has actually happened in the world, but it guides 80% of how you think the world works. When someone makes a seemingly reckless financial bet, they aren't being stupid. In that exact moment, based on the emotional baggage they carry and the limited information they have, that decision makes perfect sense to them. They are trying to solve a psychological need, not a math equation. But if our perspectives are this deeply warped, how do we separate our own hard work from the chaotic whims of the universe?
The delicate dance of luck and risk. Consider a young boy born in Seattle in 1955. He happened to attend one of the only high schools in the entire world that possessed a mainframe computer. That boy was Bill Gates. Gates himself has openly admitted that if there had been no Lakeside School, there would be no Microsoft. It was an extraordinary stroke of luck, a one-in-a-million confluence of events that placed him at the dawn of a technological revolution. But at that very same school, Gates had a brilliant best friend named Kent Evans. Evans was just as talented, just as driven, and shared the exact same passion for this new world of software. They were supposed to build the future together. But before they could even graduate, Kent Evans died in a rare mountaineering accident. It was a one-in-a-million stroke of risk. Two friends, same school, identical capability, yet one experienced the extreme positive edge of probability, while the other experienced the extreme negative edge. Luck and risk are distinct concepts, but they are driven by the exact same mechanism. They are the recognition that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. When you succeed, keep your ego in check because luck played a bigger role than you want to admit. And when you fail, stop destroying yourself with guilt because sometimes you just happen to be on the wrong side of a bad risk. But when people fail to respect this balance, they enter a trap with no escape. The curse of the moving goalposts. Have you ever wondered why hedge fund managers who already possess hundreds of millions of dollars, enough to secure 7 generations of their family, still cheat, inside trade, and risk everything until they end up in a federal prison? It is because they suffer from a distinct modern disease, the inability to recognize when they have enough. Capitalism is incredibly good at generating two things: massive wealth and intense envy. The moment your income increases, your expectations and your lifestyle rise right along with it. You enter a brutal hedonic treadmill, constantly looking at the guy with the bigger yacht or the nicer vacation home. You start playing a game of social comparison that has no finish line. The hardest financial skill to learn by far is getting the goalposts to stop moving. If you don't know where your boundary lies, the only way to find it is by crossing it, which usually means pushing until you break. There is absolutely no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. Happiness is a simple equation: results minus expectations. If your expectations keep running away from you, you can become a billionaire and still feel entirely bankrupt inside. The silent engine of compounding. If you ask the average person how Warren Buffett became one of the wealthiest men to ever walk the earth, they will tell you about his brilliant analytical mind and his value investing philosophy. But they are completely missing the headline. Buffett's real secret isn't that he is a good investor. His secret is that he has been a good investor for over 3/4 of a century. Buffett began investing seriously when he was 10 years old. By the time he was in his mid-50s, he was undeniably rich, but more than 90% of his colossal net worth was accumulated after his 50th birthday. If he had started investing at age 30 like a normal person and retired at age 60, his wealth would be a microscopic fraction of what it is today. His engine is time. His power is compounding. The human brain is simply not wired to understand exponential growth. We think linearly. If you take 30 steps forward, you get 30 feet away. But if you take 30 exponential steps, you circle the entire globe. Compounding is a snowball rolling down a mountain. For the first few miles, it looks insignificant. But if you just keep it rolling without touching it, it eventually grows so massive that it alters the entire landscape. The ultimate lesson of compounding is that the best investing strategy isn't the one with the highest returns, because high returns are volatile and hard to maintain. The best strategy is the one you can stick with for the longest period without interrupting it. Consistency beats intensity every single day of the week. Rich versus wealthy, look around you. The guy driving a $100,000 sports car with a massive monthly lease. The person wearing head-to-toe designer clothes financed on credit cards. These people are rich. Being rich is a function of current income. It is highly visible. It is the loud, proud manifestation of money spent. Wealth, on the other hand, is completely invisible. Wealth is the money that has not been spent. It is the sports cars not purchased, the diamonds left in the store, the renovations postponed. Wealth is the financial assets sitting quietly in a bank account or an index fund waiting to be used. The great paradox of wealth is that it is incredibly difficult for us to emulate because we cannot see it. We see the influencer's luxury vacation, but we do not see their mountain of debt. The world is full of people who look rich, but live on the absolute precipice of financial ruin. When you finally realize that true wealth is defined by options rather than possessions, your entire approach to saving changes. You stop viewing saving as a sacrifice and start viewing it as an act of absolute self-defense. Saving without a reason. People often ask, why should I save money if I don't have a specific goal? I don't want a house right now, and I don't want a new car. This is a massive psychological mistake. You don't need a reason to save money. You should save money simply because the world is volatile, unpredictable, and entirely chaotic. You have no idea when a corporate downsizing will hit, when a health crisis will strike, or when the entire economy will shift overnight. When you save money without a specific goal, you are buying a variable called flexibility. A robust savings account gives you the power to walk out on an abusive boss without worrying about next month's rent. It buys you the luxury of taking 2 or 3 months to find the perfect job, rather than being forced to take the first desperate offer that comes your way. Saving money isn't about deprivation. It is about building a buffer between you and the harsh realities of life. And that buffer provides the ultimate return on investment, sovereign over time. If you look closely at behavioral psychology data regarding human happiness, you will find a common thread that cuts across every single demographic. It isn't the size of your house or the prestige of your job title that truly fulfills you. The single most powerful predictor of positive human emotion is having a sense of total control over your life, the ability to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, for as long as you want, is the highest dividend that money pays. You can have the highest paying job in the city, but if you have to work 80 hours a week under a toxic corporate culture, your wealth is an illusion. You are just a well-paid prisoner. True freedom is not about buying things. It is about buying autonomy. When you use your money to buy control over your time, your relationship with work changes completely. You no longer work out of raw terror. You work out of choice. This single shift transforms your mental health, your relationships, and your longevity. But to get to this point, you have to stop trying to be perfectly rational and instead aim for something far more human. Reasonable beats. Rational academic finance textbooks assume that you are a perfectly rational being. They tell you to mathematically optimize every single dollar. They argue that you shouldn't pay off your low-interest mortgage because you could technically make more money investing that cash in the stock market. Mathematically, they are right, but humans are not spreadsheets. We are emotional, fearful, and anxious creatures. A reasonable person acknowledges this. They understand that while paying off a mortgage might not make perfect sense on a calculator, the unquantifiable peace of mind that comes from knowing no one can ever take their home away is worth more than a few percentage points of return. Minimizing regret is far more important than maximizing returns. A financial plan that allows you to sleep soundly at night is a superior plan because the best plan is the one you can actually stick with when the world is burning around you. And history shows that the world burns far more often than we like to admit. The supremacy of tail events. When you look back at the history of the global economy or the history of individual empires, you notice a strange pattern. The vast majority of the massive, world-altering outcomes are driven by a tiny fraction of events. In finance, these are called tail events, the 1 in a million occurrences that move the needle completely. An entity like Disney produced hundreds of films that lost money or barely broke even. But then they produced an animated feature like Snow White, and that single massive success wiped out all previous losses and funded the company for decades. The same is true for your personal portfolio. Your success over a lifetime will not be determined by the hundreds of ordinary decisions you make on average days. It will be determined by how you behave during a few critical high-stress moments, like a sudden market crash or a global pandemic. Long-term thinking is not about predicting the future with accuracy. It is about creating a margin of safety so wide that you can survive the unpredictability of tomorrow. Survival is the greatest financial strategy of all. If you can simply stay in the game long enough without being forced to liquidate your assets, the natural growth of human ingenuity and compounding will do the heavy lifting for you. But staying in the game requires checking your ego at the door every single morning. The reality of financial sanity, ultimately, the psychology behind our financial decisions, is a battle between who we actually are and who we want the world to think we are. Money touches every single aspect of our existence, our survival, our status, our freedom, and our legacy. But if you want to build a bulletproof financial life, you have to step away from the noise of the crowd. You have to recognize that the people flashing their lifestyles on social media have a completely different set of goals, a different time horizon, and a different risk tolerance than you do. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. The ultimate goal of managing your money should never be to die with the largest possible number in a bank account. That is just a different kind of trap. The goal is to use money as a tool to fashion a life that feels authentic, peaceful, and free. The biggest financial advantage you can ever achieve isn't discovering a secret stock or using a complex algorithm. It is developing a profound, grounded relationship with money that prioritizes sanity over greed and time over possessions. When you finally realize that money is less about finance and more about psychology, the entire world shifts into focus. You stop chasing the illusions of wealth that society displays on billboards, and you start building the quiet, invisible wealth that actually matters. True wealth is not about what you can show the world. It is about what you can give yourself. A life of absolute sovereignty, quiet confidence, and unshakable peace.